Welcome to episode 202 of Your Career Podcast. During these COVID days, when so many are rethinking their lives and careers and what is truly important, it's time to find out how to be the best version of ourselves. It's my pleasure to introduce my special guest on episode 202, Janine Garner. Janine is the best-selling author of It's Who You Know, From Me to We, and Be Brilliant, How to Lead a Life of Influence. I was honored to be invited on her fabulous podcast, Unleashing Brilliance, to talk about career change and how to reinvent your career. And now I'd love to share with you her amazing career journey. Over the past 2 decades, Janine has worked with thousands of high-profile leaders and helped countless of Australia's top 50 ASX companies and multinationals, EY, CBRE, DXC Technology, Hewlett Packard, Microfocus, Optus and CBA, to name a few. Janine's a global thought leader on powerful networking, collaboration, and leadership. She's passionate about building high-performing leaders and teams and bringing brilliant people together to achieve remarkable results. When she's not on stage, Janine is super proud to have completed 2 Tough Mudder and 1 Spartan race and enjoys the hardest challenge of all, raising 3 teenage children, 2 ragdoll cats, and a French bulldog called Harvey. This is an episode you will enjoy. And now let's welcome the amazing Janine Garner to the show. Hi, Janine.
Hey, Jane, it's so fabulous to be here.
I know, I'm excited. You've been so busy. I've been just following you all over the place. LinkedIn, Google, you're there. You turn up absolutely everywhere. So we've got lots of exciting. We've got lots of exciting things to talk about because you do have your new book, Be Brilliant, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But because this podcast is all about career transitions and how to make successful transitions, you being the master of reinvention, let's kick it off with what your early aspirations were for your career when you were a little girl.
Oh my goodness me. So, do you know, all I wanted to be when I grew up was a backing singer. I had this absolute dream of being on stage with backing singers, supporting incredible rock stars and learning all the dances and all of that stuff. And interestingly, when I first arrived, and we'll sort of come to the backstory, but when I first arrived in Australia, I found it so hard to get a job, irrespective of all my experience. I had so many knockbacks that I decided one day to write a cover letter to go with my resume. And the cover letter literally went why I wanted to be a Spice Girl. And I wrote this whole cover letter about why I wanted to be a Spice Girl, et cetera, et cetera. And lo and behold, the calls came for interviews. So it just shows you that you can be a little bit different. But interestingly now, you know, I am on stage speaking and in front of a microphone. So it's just quite interesting how when you look back, you go, wow, yeah, I've done my own. I might not be the Pink of this world or the Spice Girl of this world, but I am actually on stage delivering a message and loving it.
That's so interesting that you should say that. Here's a little snippet that you might not have known about me. I was a backup dancer to a group called Tina and the Turners back in my Singapore days. But that's a story for another time. But how interesting. And so, I mean, now because, I mean, honestly, you're such an amazing presenter and speaker, and your stories of transition are phenomenal. And you're inspiring so many women with your little black dress LBD group and all sorts of things, which we'll be hearing about. But But how did you make that initial transition? Because you started your career in the UK, in London, in marketing and communications, and you worked at Jaeger and Homebase, and then you made a transition to Sydney.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about that. How did you make the change? First of all, the country change and why, and also then what it was like actually starting your career in a new country.
Yeah, well, I think the hunger for change started even earlier than that, because at the age of 18, I chose to leave home to go to university. So I remember as a child always having this curiosity around, there's got to be more, there's something else out there. And I grew up in a very working class farming community. I ended up being the first of a generation to go to university. We didn't actually have the money to send me to uni. I had to apply to the government to get funding to go. But luckily, I was given the chance, and I packed my backpack and headed to Birmingham to study, which is further south where I grew up. And then I headed to London. So I gradually moved further and further away from home. And I actually never went back home, to be honest. I left at 18. At uni, I did a Bachelor of Science degree and specialized in business and marketing, and had this insatiable curiosity around consumer behavior. What drives change? What makes somebody buy versus not buy? And it was very consumer driven. And so from an early stage, it was that's what I want to do. I want to go into marketing. And hence, I was fortunate enough to be part of a graduate training program after uni, as part of a company called Coates Viella. And we had a year of interning around the business, and then I started my marketing career and spent that first sort of 8 years really working my way up that ladder, being inspired by some incredible women in that organization. In fact, one I've reconnected with now on the back of the recent books. And my very first boss has reached out and is supporting my work now. But the question about the transition, there was an initial transition in the UK. You know, I spent, maybe seven, 8 years in the fashion industry in the UK. And there was a part of me, again, the curiosity around, I wonder if I need to actually step out of industry, because I'm getting very focused on a particular style of communication. And so I decided to move companies and moved into a company called Sainsbury's Homebase. I was brought in as literally a small swap team, as it were, to bring a consultant's vision to life. I was brought in to do the marketing and comms. There was somebody looking after promotion and somebody looking after product, and one other, or four of us, that essentially brought a 130,000 square foot retailing concept to life. And this retailing concept was, if you imagine a Freedom Furniture with a Bunnings warehouse with a garden centre, we literally had that all under one roof. And I went from essentially selling and marketing an average price of a £350 suit to a £20 tin of paint or ladder. And that whole experience was phenomenal from the context of doing something different. But actually, it made me realize where I don't thrive. And I often say to people that ask me about my career, sometimes you've got to try stuff to learn more about what you're good at and also about the environments that you thrive in. So for me, it highlighted really quickly that I'm not very good at working in highly structured environments that don't allow entrepreneurial thinking. Environments where, you know, this is your job, and when you get to the edge of your responsibility, do not pass go. Somebody else takes over. That's not where I thrive. And an understanding that I have to be passionate about what I'm marketing. And so essentially I only lasted about a year in that job. We launched, I think, 5 stores. They were, each store was taking over £1 million a week. It was big, big business. But I was just not fired up about it. I couldn't get excited about it. during this time, I'd met my husband, or the guy that's now my husband, and we decided to come to Australia on a holiday. He's actually from Perth originally, but we met in London. And I remember landing back in London, hitting the M25 in February, which is like the shortest days in England, and just feeling so low and just like, I have to get out of here. This is not my place. I never really felt at home in England. And so really that was the first transition where I went, you know what, I'm going to apply for a residency visa. And I applied to move to Australia. I was 29 at the time, and I was at the time lucky enough to get in on a point system. I remember the day the visa was granted, and I literally had 6 months to leave England. And it was just like, oh my gosh, what have I done? What have I done? But, in typical Janine style, it was like, right, I've made a decision. I've got to follow this through. And so I literally packed up my job, sold every single belonging, and arrived in Australia on the 1st of December 2000 with a backpack, a resume, a permanent residency visa, and my boyfriend, and that was it. I didn't have a job. I had no point of residence. I had really no idea what I was going to do, and I had to rebuild my career in a country where I had no social proof, and rebuild my network and all of these things. And it wasn't easy, if I'm honest, Jane. Those first week, Jason and I, my husband and I, decided to pack a backpack and travel around Australia, as most Brits do when we first arrived here. And we were originally planning to base ourselves in Melbourne because my brother had arrived a year earlier, but I couldn't find any work. And so we jumped on a bus and with our backpacks again, and arrived in Sydney. Again, no job. And contacted somebody that we'd met backpacking, and pretty much slept on a fellow traveller's floor for the first couple of months as we worked out what we were going to do. And I started temping, and then I got my first official job here in Australia. I worked at Citizen Watches in marketing alongside the managing director, and it was just awesome. I was doing a lot of product development, really building relationships between the brand and retailers, launching a Citizen healthcare range, and just absolutely loved it. In terms of, I pretty much spent that next 8 years building my corporate career. Now, it wasn't all unicorns and rainbows by any means. When I was pregnant with my first child, because I'd only just got back into the workplace, the company had no maternity leave, and I literally had to go back to work when he was 5 months. Really on the verge of breakdown, to be honest, because we had no family around, and I was trying to hold down this job, look after people, all of those things. And I remember going to the managing director at the time and saying, we have a choice here. I either have to leave or we have to reduce my hours. And strangely enough, he said, let's reduce your hours. It's all good. The power of asking for help. And you think I'd learn, but I've got 3 children. With my second child, the crazy thing about me I have this stupid work ethic, which has positive to it and negative. The positive is that I will absolutely not give up. I've got this hunger and determination to keep going. And I've learned over the years to learn when to stop, but it's taken me a long time. So when I was on maternity leave with my second daughter, I was still developing marketing strategies, business plans. I went into the business at the time. She was 2 months old to present the strategy. Half a day later, finally got it signed off. And then as I was about to leave to come home, I was breastfeeding Taya at the same time. I got made redundant. And this was like, oh gosh, wow. It was like my first lesson in managing boundaries and taking some control. And so I was really fortunate in that Tom Lane, who is part of the Lane family that founded Oraton, heard through the grapevine that I was looking for work, and he invited me for a coffee. Or so I thought. What I didn't realize, he was actually wanting to offer me a job. And I literally had this 2-month-old on the side, on my hip. And I went, okay, I'm gonna try this learning once and for all. And I remember putting together a proposal about how work could work for me, almost going, there's no way he's going to go for this. And he did. So again, another example of ask for what you want and value your expertise. And I pretty much built the rest of my corporate career at Oraton Group. I became the group marketing director at Oraton Group, looking after the Ralph Lauren brand and the Oraton brand. And there came this point, Jane, where at the time I had 3 children, still got them, they're just a bit older, but at the time they were all under, I think 7 or 8. Life was mental. Both myself and my husband were working full time. And I was starting to really question what's next. By this time I was about 39. And I just remember this moment of going, I'm really good at what I do. I can do this standing on my head, but something's missing. I really lost the fire in my belly. Like, there's got to be more. There's got to be more than this. And I decided to host a dinner and reached out to another 8 incredible female executives that I'd heard of in Australia, in Sydney, and I invited them to join me for dinner because I was really curious about, at the time, there was a whole conversation about work-life balance, and I was constantly striving and proving and getting exhausted and not really doing anything well, doing a lot of stuff, but felt like I was out of control. And I hadn't found that inspiration of finding people that were like me, that were like, I actually want to keep delivering. I want to keep contributing. Yes, I want to be a mum, but also I've got a brain that I want to use and I need to keep growing it. And funnily enough, all of these women around the table were exactly the same. They wanted to contribute. They wanted to collaborate. They wanted to continue to build their careers or their businesses. And so I started doing a bit of a business plan. And things at Oraton Group weren't particularly all rosy at the time. There were various things going on that were misaligned to my value system. And one day I just went, you know what? This business plan could work. We could do this. And I decided to pack in the corporate job. I spoke to my husband and we made that decision that he was going to hang on to the corporate job while I built this business. I packed in the corporate job and I essentially self-funded my own business. And over those next 8 years, then worked to build that business, LBD Group that you referenced. It became a community across Australia. We started testing the concept in Singapore and in London. And it became really clear that there was opportunity for this to grow further. And also at the same time, I'd written 2 books. The demand for me to speak and to work in corporates, training and building high-performing teams was starting to get bigger too. And I was really caught between this, oh my gosh, what have I created and what am I going to do here? And I remember being on a plane flying from Sydney to Perth to do a speaking gig, and I was exhausted. I'd literally gone back full circle to where I was at the age of 39. I was exhausted. I'd absolutely built this incredible business, but at the same time, just going, what's next? How do I get back in control? And I remember in England, we say the back of a fag packet. I literally got a piece of paper and I wrote down what my vision was. I wrote down how many days I wanted to work. I wrote down how much I'd like to make and why. And then I actually looked at my 12 months ahead, and it just became really clear to me that my calendar had been taken over. My dreams and my vision had been taken over by everybody else, and I had to get back in control because there was no way I could achieve what I wanted to achieve next or do it on my terms, because suddenly I was pulled in to this incredible business that I'd created. And so at the age of, 10 years later, how old am I now? 49, so about 47. I decided to pack that in, and I sold LBD in March 2019. And then that next phase of me has begun, which is absolutely 100% focusing on the work that I do. I'm on a mission to unleash brilliance in 10 million people over the next 10 years. I'm absolutely passionate about people living the life and career and building the business that they want to build. And I totally believe it's in every single one of us. It just needs to be unlocked. And so that's my next 10-year journey. And I think when I look back, the consistent things for me have been about taking ownership. I often say to people, companies own jobs. The company owns your job, but you own your career. And when I look back over my 20-year corporate career and now 10 years of building my own business, at every single point I have taken ownership of the decision I have made. At every single point I've taken the time to reflect on me and what is the next version of me. And at every single point, there's no doubt about it, Jane, it's been scary. It's taken a lot of facing fear, but doing it anyway. And actually going, no one can ever take away your experience. You can always go backwards, but there's often only one or 2 points to move forward and test yourself. And I have this big belief in, I have an insatiable desire for growth, for becoming better, for learning more. One of my clients said to me, we love working with you, Janine, because we throw a challenge at you and you just go, yeah, bring it on, we'll work it out. There's never a no. There's always a way. There's always a way. And I think when I track back over my career, I've always been this entrepreneurial spirit. The corporates that would block me in, I would push past. Whenever rules are put in my place, I find a way to get around them. And it's the same with life. I go, you own your life, you own your career, you own your dreams, you own your goals. And too many of us have given that away. So when it comes to career and taking ownership, it starts and ends with you. And it's not all going to be roses, no way. But you know what? When you surround yourself with the right people that get what you're trying to do, it's incredible what you can achieve.
Mm-hmm. I think the power of positivity, and also, as you say, if you need help or if you want something that's different from what you've already got, just ask. Yeah. And too many people are afraid to ask that question because they're afraid of rejection. But if there's a rejection, so what? You ask someone else, or you ask elsewhere, or you rephrase it. And because, the world is full of possibilities, but I think, right now, because, COVID-19 has affected 2020 so much for so many jobs as well, a lot of people are feeling quite helpless because they could have been stood down and maybe they're on JobKeeper or they're job seekers at the moment. And it has affected so many jobs, and with over 900,000 unemployed just in Australia alone, and goodness, the numbers around the world. People are starting to feel quite afraid, but listening to you, it's if you keep an open mind, then certainly you can explore and talk to people and expand your network. And really, your career has been based on truly effective networking.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think now more than ever, Jane, it's really about getting clear on what your skills are, where you have done great work or delivered value or changed something, and own that stuff versus the job title, the pay packet, and the company. And it's about how do you take your skills and how do you, with open-mindedness, approach every situation, every conversation as an opportunity. And when we enter into a place of blame, which we all do, and I often describe there's a blame triangle that goes on. And the first point of that triangle is we blame something else for our inability to move forward, for the fact that things aren't going to plan. We blame something else. So it could be the company, the economy, the pandemic, the government, whatever it may be. The other point in the triangle is we deflect from ourselves and we blame someone else. X person sacked me. X person has made redundancy cuts. Of course, that person got the promotion. They've got more than me. But essentially, those two things mean that you're not taking any responsibility for yourself, for your skills, and for
Absolutely right.
on. And then that final point of the triangle, which is the one that I think many of us are being challenged with right now, and even myself. I mean, with COVID-19, as I'm sure your business has, Jane, it's been seriously hit. You know, my business is about speaking in front of audiences and going into organizations. And probably within that first month, you know, we saw double-digit hit in terms of revenue. But this, and everyone is experiencing it in some way. But this third point of the triangle, I call it the defeatist place, is where we start beating ourselves up. It becomes our fault, our lack of self-belief. We feel like an imposter. We don't think we're good enough to do X, Y, or Z. And all of those points of the triangle, if you then overlay fatigue, which is what many of us are also experiencing right now, it's really hard to move. It's you get stuck. And it becomes this spiral. Now, there's no doubt about it that now is more challenging than ever, both in Australia and globally. But those individuals that dig deep, that understand that what is going on right now is actually not your fault. There is nothing any of us could do. This isn't taking away your experience, your skills, your contacts, the incredible work that you've done by any means. And if you can own that stuff and with confidence go out with curiosity to explore how you can meet and match and try stuff, then there is opportunity there. And now more than ever, Jane, as you've just alluded to, it's your network that absolutely matters. Who you surround yourself with, their understanding of what you're trying to achieve, their desire to help you because they want to see you succeed will unlock possibility. It will keep you on track. It will ensure that you get the support that is needed during the dull times and equally in the high times. And they will absolutely teach you more so that you can go out there and stand out. But it starts with you going, this is up to me. There's nobody else that can do this but me.
Yeah, absolutely right. And also I found that 75 to 80% of the clients that I've worked with over the past 20 years, they secure that next role through their network, not through an online job board or going to a recruiter. It's all about people who know what you can do. It's not even, who knows you. It's people who know what you can do as well. And I think it's really important for women to own that and not be afraid to do a little bit of self-promotion, not big noting, just letting people know what you can do, and then they're able to assist you. And I think one of the wonderful things about you, Janine, is that you ask, you also are able to promote what you've got so well through the public speaking, through the books that you've written. And this leads us very nicely to Be Brilliant. Now, brand new, hot off the press, Be Brilliant book. Tell us about this.
Yeah, so this is my third book. It was launched on the 1st of July. And there is a bit of a journey to the book. So the very first book I wrote was called From Me to We. And it was the first book I wrote as I exited corporate to set up my own business. And it was really written on the back of a desire to teach and help people collaborate better. How do they work better? How do we get ideas happening and tap into those ideas to create magic and results? After writing that book and with, the development of my own networking organization, I started realizing that there's something really powerful about not networking. Like, networking is so transactional if we're not careful. It's the handing out of business cards or the connecting with people on LinkedIn, and it's so transactional that it just has no depth whatsoever. And my art form, my mastery, my magic is this ability to connect and to really be intentional about getting to know how I can help people, and an absolute willingness to continually give. And it amazed me that not everybody operated like that. And so the second book, It's Who You Know, was really about creating a framework to support other people and I talk in that book about these 12 key people around you to surround yourself with to help you achieve whatever your goal is. But again, it starts with you've got to be clear on what you're trying to get, what you're trying to achieve. So now more than ever, that book is key. And then over the last couple of years, I started getting curious again, and I was going, why are some people still finding it tricky? Or what is the difference between those people that are good and those people that are just brilliant, that are in flow in terms of their work and how they're operating and how they're leading? And so I started a podcast, Unleashing Brilliance, of which you've been a guest, and I can't wait to share that episode. And it was all about trying to unlock what the difference was. And it became really clear to me that unless we can connect with ourselves, first and foremost, it's actually really hard to connect deeply with other people and to collaborate effectively with other people, because we're always hiding a piece of ourselves. And this was reinforced through the hundreds of interviews on that podcast and various interviews that I did subsequently. And so I decided to write about this. So this book, Be Brilliant, How to Lead a Life of Influence, essentially is saying you've already got everything that you need. You've absolutely got everything that you need to be brilliant, to lead that successful and fulfilling life. And as much as it doesn't feel like it sometimes, the reality is that you've got to find it to be able to take that next step. The problem is that when stress levels are high, when we go into imposter syndrome, when we worry about how we look to other people and comparisonitis kicks in, it actually stops us from growing. And so this book is a little bit of a calling card to say you have everything that you need. You've just got to get out of your own way to unlock your potential. And I introduce in the book the 4 laws of brilliance. It starts with being you, owning your spotlight, which I know, Jane, you're passionate about, because, how can people find jobs if they can't sell themselves and know what they're bringing to the conversation? So owning your spotlight. Law number 2 is about being ready, and this is about harnessing your energy, making sure you are functioning at your best and bringing your best to everything that you do. Then law number 3, which I know is something we're connected on, is connecting with intent, being together, like surrounding yourself with the right networks, learning how to collaborate and engage properly, not just let's network, let's have a cup of coffee, can you help me, but actually developing these relationships that keep going over time, much like my first boss at the age of 22 that is now speaking to me about going to speak at INSEAD on the back of which is a university in France about this book. Like that's an almost 30 years ago relationship that I've continued to nurture. So connecting with intent is law number 3. And then law number 4 is really about then how do you magnify your influence, your impact? And this is really giving you permission to go, you know what, you can step up. You can become better. You need to share more. And if we can do that, then we can amplify the impact of the people around us. So that is essentially the book. It's jammed with my story, jammed with other people's stories. There are a whole heap of exercises running throughout. And there is a way where, as you're reading it, you can assess to identify, where are you at in terms of your belief in yourself? Where are you at in terms of thriving versus surviving, or being time poor and time rich? Are you consistently taking yourself out to market? Are you a thought leader in your area of expertise, or are you hoarding your thinking to yourself? Are you hiding? And essentially this is a call to action to go, come on, be more visible. We need to see you. And actually in this world, we need you to be brave enough to undertake exceptional endeavors to create the impact that you want to create. And now more than ever, you have to be brave enough to bring the best of yourself to everything that you do.
There's so much passion in all that you do, Janine. And I think, helping people to be able to really take ownership of who they are and their health and everything else around them, not just their careers or their businesses, but their family and their personal lives as well. I mean, that's a very valuable part that you've added into your book, being ready, that second pillar as such, and certainly never being afraid to amplify what you can do. I mean, this is going to be such a very timely and valuable book as well. And now what I'm going to do is I'll have in my show notes on janejacksoncoach.com/podcast, you will see all of the links to reach Janine. Mind you, if you just Google Janine Garner, you shall be there. Right? You're not hard to find. You're not hard to find, Janine. But that's because you're living proof of exactly what you do. And I think all of the experiences that you've had, you really grab the bull by the horns and just think, well, here's life. Let's just do it. Let's move country. Let's get another job. I'm not sure, if this role is right for me, I need to make a change, but I've learned from it. Those are the lessons that you've learned throughout your career as well. And I think it's put you in such great stead to be able to continue to inspire people as they go through their lives as well. And as you say, be brilliant in their own lives too. So thank you so much, Janine. That was
my absolute
such
pleasure.
an interesting story and very, very inspirational too. And of course, you're a public speaker. There's so much for you to inspire in other women, and in fact, anybody who's going through just a little bit of self-doubt as to who and what they should be moving forward.
Thank you so much for having me on your show.
And good luck with Be Brilliant. It's going to really help many, many lives.
Thank you, Jane.
If you enjoy Your Career Podcast, please hop over to iTunes and leave a review, because that's how we get to reach more people. And if you need help in your career, go to www.thecareersacademy.online, where you'll be able to find lots of online programs as well as one-on-one coaching with me. See you soon.